it's Moose, and thank you so much for joining me back here. I hope you had a very happy Halloween. I like Halloween. And I was a little disappointed this year. I have always lived kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and so we don't really get trick-or-treaters. But Ethan and I live in an apartment, and so I kind of thought we might get some, and I bought like 3 bags of Reese cups just because I didn't know what to expect. We didn't get a single trick-or-treater, and I was a little disappointed, but I hope you had a good one. So today we are going to do my October wrap-up and my September TBR. I kind of read 2.5 books because my last book I'm still working on, so that's a thing too. In the month of September, I did D&F, 1 book. I did not finish The Secret Life of Bees. I got maybe 1/3 of the way through this book, and it just was not grabbing my attention and holding it. I didn't find myself wanting to pick it up. I didn't really find myself wanting to read it. And so I decided to just move on to the next thing. For those of you that are interested in this book, it's kind of like a historical fiction book almost, but it doesn't rely too heavily on the historical aspect, at least as far as I got in the book. So the book is about a girl named Lily who lives around the time of the Civil Rights Act, which is around the 1960s. I don't think it ever says like that in particular, but it does talk about the woman who helps run the household and take care of Lily. Her name is Rosaline. She's a black woman, and it talks about how she's excited to finally get the right to vote. And racism during the Civil Rights era is a part of this book, which I usually enjoy reading about. I don't know why I could really get into this book. And even though the civil rights aspect is in this book, I wouldn't say it's the main focus of the book, which is maybe why I didn't like it as much. Because within this book, Lily has lost her mother. Her mother died when she was young, and so she's kind of dealing and coping with that. She hasn't really learned how. Her father never really talked about her mother, never really gave her a chance to ask questions. And so she finds out something that she thinks could be from her mother's past, and she goes searching for that. And while I know it'll be a heartwarming story to a lot of people out there, I couldn't get into it. Sorry. The next book I read in the month of September is Illuminae. This book is one of my favorite books out of the year this far. I enjoyed it so much. I thought it was so cool. I went into this book kind of blind. That's usually how I like to do my reading. I don't really like to read the blurbs or watch summaries or watch videos about particular books. I kind of like to go into them blind without any kind of expectation, and I find that I enjoy them more that way, just kind of experiencing everything for the first time. So for this book, I made a whole reading vlog about it, but the only thing I really knew about this book was that the format was different. So for those of you who have never encountered Illuminae, it's just a bunch of files that have been put together and like interviews and stuff like that. So it's not really a prose format like a lot of fiction novels. It's a bunch of these different kind of files piled together in chronological order so you can get the story from the files, which is so cool. I've heard a lot of people say it's hard for them to get through this book. I did read the physical copy, but if you want to read this book and you're kind of struggling, I've heard a lot of people say that the audiobook helps, and especially if you listen to the audiobook and then follow along on, with the print hard copy. So basically in this book, the 2 main characters that we meet are Katie Grant and Ezra Mason, and at the very, very beginning of this book, their planet is destroyed and they are forced to kind of evacuate and leave everything behind. And so they're kind of flying through space during this entire novel on 3 different ships. And so the story is kind of their experience on these different ships. And it has a lot to do with the AI of the main ship called the Alexander. That's all I'm really going to say. I don't want to spoil it. I definitely recommend this book. I was never really a sci-fi reader, not because I don't enjoy sci-fi, because I very much enjoyed this book. I just never really read much of it. It's not what I grab that often, but I really enjoyed this. So if you like sci-fi, pick it up. Even if you don't like sci-fi, you might like this book. Undies barking. She is seconding my opinion. The last book that I officially finished in the month of September is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I really enjoyed this book too. I know a lot of people don't like this book. There's a lot of mixed reviews. I feel like people either love it or they hate it from what I've seen here on the internet, both on YouTube and on Goodreads. I was one of the people that really, really enjoyed it. So basically in this world, there's a guy called the Dragon, and he's just kind of like a wizard type thing. And every 10 years, he picks a girl from the surrounding villages to come and live with him for 10 years. And nobody really knows why. They just kind of expect it and they know that's going to happen. And so the main character of this book is up for the choosing. The main character is the one that is chosen, and the story kind of follows what happens after she's chosen, you know, what the dragon does with the women, and how the main character's experience is different than those who he has chosen in previous years. I want to say a couple things about this book. One, I've heard people compare this and say that it's like a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I did not really get that from this book at all. If I had read this book without hearing that, I would not have thought Beauty and the Beast in the slightest. So if you're looking for like a traditional Beauty and the Beast retelling, this is not it. This is not for you. But it is still a good story. It's a good fantasy story. Not necessarily that teens don't experience that kind of stuff, but it should not be categorized as such. The last thing I want to say about this book is I really, really enjoy Naomi Novik's writing style. I was constantly engaged with the story, and I feel like her pacing is done so well. Because I feel like she gives me enough description and enough detail to get a feel for the world and to better picture the story without getting bogged down. I've read a lot of books where there's just too much detail to the point where the story kind of gets lost within it. That is not the case for this book, if you ask me. I feel like things are constantly happening, but I'm getting enough of the detail to really picture a world in my head, and I fully intend to read more from her. The last book that I started in September and is rolling over to my November TBR is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. One thing I want to say that has nothing really to do with Scythe is I have his Everlost series. I bought these books years ago and never read them. So this is my first experience with him, but I just thought it was neat that I've had a whole series of his for years and then decided to read something completely different. So I am not very far into Scythe so far. I am on page 89, so almost 100 pages in. I like it so far, but it's not what I expected. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this book. It's highly hyped, and a lot of people are talking about it currently on BookTube because the third book of the series comes out this month. But essentially, death is not a thing anymore. The civilization in the future has figured out how to keep death from happening, so people don't die in the future. And because of that, and to kind of keep the population in control, there are what are called scythes. So scythes are basically dedicated people who kill other people, but they're highly regarded within society. You know, nobody likes them, but everyone respects them. They recognize that it's an important part of society, that it's just something that has to be done. And so in this book, a scythe chooses 2 apprentices and kind of trains them. And that's really about as far as I've gotten so far. I've just had a busy past couple days. I haven't really got the chance to read it. But yes, this is on my November TBR. And this is the last book in the challenge from Ethan. Ethan is supposed to come home hopefully here soon within the next couple weeks. So this is my last book. As long as I finish this book by the time he gets home, I win the bet. And it's going to happen. I'm going to win. But like I say, 2 books is always my goal within a month. Don't know how that's going to work out this month. Just because Ethan's family is supposed to come down for his graduation, and then Thanksgiving is this month. And we are planning to go back home for West Virginia for a couple days for that. I don't know if it's realistic, if I'll actually read 2 books, but that is my goal. And so I think I am finally going to start the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I don't know. I've never read anything by her before. She's very hyped here on BookTube. Her and Cassandra Clare, I would say, are the 2 biggest YA authors talked about. And here recently, Leigh Bardugo. But everyone rants and raves about these books, not necessarily always in a positive light. This is another one of those series that I feel like people either love it or they hate it. I'm a sucker for YA fantasy, and especially those with romance in it. And I've heard that's exactly what this is. So I'm anticipating to like it, but we'll see. You know, I'm not gonna hype it up too much, because then my expectations will be too high, and then I'll get disappointed, and then I'll say I don't like the book. So. But yes, I am going to start this series this month as well. So there is A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I don't plan on getting to any of these this month, but I also do have the rest of the series as well. And I just want to say, I bought all of these on bargain. So yeah, that is my September wrap up and well, I've been saying September this whole time. My October wrap up. Wow. Oh, October's over, guys. This year has flown by. Anyways, that was my October wrap up. And my November TBR. Did I say that the whole time? Have I been saying September and October? I'm going crazy. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you're reading this month. I'm always interested to know what other people are reading. And we'll meet back here next time. See ya! This is going to be hard. That's what she said. Ah! Oh, that's it. Oh my goodness. I've never struggled more with a thumbnail.